The cabin
I
was
am
quiet in
ordering
that
you
early
to
morning
take your
way
seat
where everyone was half
immediately,
awake
sir,
and
or
trying to
we will
settle
have
into
you
their seats.
escorted off this
Soft
plane.
overhead
You have
lights
done
glowed
nothing
across the
wrong.
polished
You are out of
first-class cabin,
line.
bouncing off
Stop
the leather
threatening
headrests
us.
and casting
These
warm
seats are
reflections on
not
the
yours.
windows.
Your
People
boarding
murmured to their
passes are
families,
clearly
tucked
marked
jackets
economy.
away, or
We
scrolled
paid
through
for
their
these
phones.
seats. You can see the
Then a
confirmation
voice
right here.
sliced through
Please
it.
stop yelling at my
"Sir, I'm going to
family.
need you to step aside." Her tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried that sharp edge that turns heads, the kind of voice that stops conversation mid-sentence. A few passengers looked up right away. Others pretended not to stare but angled their gaze over their newspapers or tablet screens. Ethan Cole lifted his eyes slowly, as if giving the moment a chance to correct itself. He wasn't confrontational by nature, but something in the flight attendant's voice made the hairs on his arms rise. Next to him, his wife Maya paused mid-reach as she helped their 5-year-old son Noah buckle into his seat. Noah held a toy jet in his small hands, tapping it lightly against the armrest in excitement. His little world was all takeoff sounds and giggles. Maya's world, however, shifted in an instant. That one command, step aside, carried a humiliation she felt in her chest. She swallowed the feeling, but it sat there, heavy. The flight attendant stood over them, posture stiff, lips tightened in a thin line. Her crisp name badge read Kimberly Shaw. Her expression carried the kind of judgment that isn't loud but burns all the same. "Is there a problem?" Ethan asked, his voice calm and even. His tone held no anger, only surprise. Kimberly drew in a breath as if preparing to deliver instructions, not explanations. "I need to check your boarding passes again." The word again echoed. Passengers nearby turned openly now. A woman across the aisle frowned. A man in a suit raised his eyebrows, curious. The silence shifted from peaceful to uneasy. Maya cleared her throat gently and handed Ethan the passes. Her fingers trembled, just barely, and she covered it by smoothing Noah's hair. Ethan offered Kimberly the boarding passes with a steady hand. "Here you go." Kimberly took them, but instead of a normal glance, she inspected every line. Seat numbers, names, barcodes, flipping them back and forth like she expected to uncover a secret they were hiding. Minutes stretched. Noah watched, confused, clutching his toy jet tighter. "Dad, are we still flying today?" Maya smiled softly at him, hiding the sting she felt. "Of course, baby. Daddy's just talking to the lady." Ethan's expression remained composed, but a faint tension crept into his jaw. "Is there something wrong with the tickets?" he asked. Kimberly didn't answer right away. Instead, she lifted her chin and said, "I'll need you to wait a moment." Her voice held an unnecessary firmness, the kind people use when they're trying to assert authority they don't fully possess. She kept the boarding passes and walked briskly toward the galley. Murmur rippled through the cabin. "Did they do something wrong?" Someone whispered. "That family?" Another replied. "They look fine to me." Ethan caught a few of the glances. Some were curious. Others were uneasy, even sympathetic. He didn't react. Years of being in boardrooms had taught him the power of a controlled expression. Maya leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Why did she take the passes? We're in the right seats." "She'll be back," Ethan said. But even he didn't fully believe his words. Something about Kimberly's tone, that pointed emphasis, that underlying assumption, didn't feel routine. Noah pushed his toy jet along his tray table, humming softly, but even his carefree melody faded a bit as he sensed the tension. Kids always do. A few rows behind them, another flight attendant paused as Kimberly approached. This one, younger, softer expression, name tag reading Jenna Ruiz, frowned as Kimberly whispered something hurriedly into her ear. Jenna's brows pulled together. "Did you check the system?" she asked, speaking low but clear. Kimberly stiffened. "Yes, but this isn't about the system," she muttered, glancing toward the Cole family. "Look at them. Do they usually fly in first class? Something seems off." Jenna's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face. "Kimberly, you can't assume things like that." But Kimberly waved her off and strode down the aisle again, leaving Jenna standing there with a troubled expression. Back in their row, Maya exhaled slowly. "Ethan," she whispered. That didn't sound like routine checking. No, he agreed quietly. It didn't. He brushed a thumb across her hand. Reassuring, but tense. A few seats over, an older man leaned toward them slightly. Everything all right? He asked in a low voice. Maya gave a polite smile, though her eyes said otherwise. Just a misunderstanding, I think, the man nodded. But the way his gaze followed Kimberly told them he wasn't convinced. Minutes later, Kimberly returned. No softer, no kinder, and handed the boarding passes back without looking Ethan in the eyes. Thank you for your patience, she said, voice tight. She didn't sound thankful. She sounded annoyed. Ethan accepted the passes. Is everything in order now? Kimberly paused. It was the briefest slip, but it said everything. Her composure cracked, then quickly stitched itself back together. For now, she replied. Then she walked away. For now. The phrase left a trail of unease behind it. Maya's lips parted slightly. What does that mean? Ethan didn't answer. Not because he didn't know, but because he did. Kimberly wasn't done. Her attitude wasn't random. Something else was brewing, and he could feel it rising like a storm cloud. Noah tugged at Maya's sleeve. Mommy, why's that lady mad at us? Maya smoothed his hair gently. She's not mad, sweetheart. She's just confused. Ethan rested a hand on Noah's shoulder, grounding him. Everything's okay, buddy. But the truth hovered in the air, heavy and unspoken. It wasn't okay. Not yet. Across the aisle, Jenna Ruiz watched the family with worry. She could sense the shift in the cabin. The tension, the whispers, the way passengers exchanged glances. Her instincts told her this wasn't a simple check, and she was right, because while passengers settled in, adjusting pillows and browsing in-flight menus, Kimberly stood hidden in the galley clutching a phone to her ear. Her voice was sharp, hushed, almost panicked. Yes, Captain. I'm telling you something isn't right with that booking. She turned, peering toward the seats where Ethan, Maya, and Noah sat. They don't look like first-class travelers. There it was, the bias spoken out loud, dripping with certainty. A pause. Kimberly swallowed hard as she listened to the reply. Yes, sir, she said stiffly. I'll handle it. She lowered the phone, exhaling shakily. Even she felt the ground shifting beneath her feet now, but she pushed the feeling aside, straightened her uniform, and stepped back into the cabin. Her eyes were set. Her decision was made, and the Cole family's quiet morning flight was about to turn into something far bigger than anyone on board expected. What Kimberly did next would not only change the flight, it would change her entire life. Ethan barely stepped into the galley before Kimberly spun around and shut the curtain behind him, sealing them away from curious eyes. Her movements were too fast, too tense. She wasn't following procedure. She was scrambling. Sir, she began, arms crossing defensively, your reservation has been flagged in our system. Flagged. The word hung there like an accusation. Ethan's brow lifted slightly. Flagged for what? Kimberly didn't answer right away. She glanced around as if hoping someone would jump in to support her. But the galley was empty, no backup. No one to validate a story she hadn't even finished crafting. She cleared her throat. I can't go into details. It's internal. Ethan's patience thinned. Then bring me the internal notice. She hesitated. A fatal hesitation. It's not that simple. Try, Ethan replied calmly. Her jaw clenched. Sir, this is a premium cabin. We have to ensure everyone seated is worthy. Ethan finished for her, his tone calm but loaded. Kimberly flinched. That's not what I said. No, Ethan replied, stepping just close enough for his voice to carry weight without rising. But it is exactly what you implied. Before she could fire back, another voice cut in. Kimberly! Jenna Ruiz stood at the galley entrance, expression tight, breathing a little faster as if she'd rushed over. She pulled the curtain aside just enough to slip in, then closed it again. We need to talk, she said, her tone firmer than before. Kimberly stiffened. Not now. Yes, now. Jenna looked from her to Ethan. I checked the system. There is no flag on their reservation. Kimberly's eyes widened for half a second, then narrowed. "You must have missed it." "No," Jenna said sharply. "I didn't." The tension hit a breaking point. The galley air felt thin. Ethan watched quietly, reading both attendants. One was confident. One was unraveling. Kimberly folded her arms again, doubling down. "Jenna, please stay out of this." Jenna didn't back down. "Kim, stop. You're making this worse." "It's procedure," Kimberly snapped. "It's bias," Jenna shot back. The word echoed. Kimberly's face drained. Ethan stepped in. Not aggressively, but deliberately. "Let's settle this professionally." "Bring your supervisor." Kimberly shook her head. "He's busy preparing for takeoff." "Then call him," Ethan said. She bristled but reached for the wall phone anyway. Her hand shook. She pressed the button harder than needed. "Captain," she said, voice clipped. "I need clarification about a passenger issue." A pause. Her eyes darted nervously toward Ethan. "Yes, that one," she said. Another pause. Her shoulders dropped at whatever the captain said next. "I understand," she murmured. When she hung up, she refused to meet Ethan's eyes. "What did he say?" Jenna demanded. Kimberly swallowed. He said to proceed carefully." "That's not an answer," Ethan said. Kimberly forced a breath. "He wants me to gather a full explanation of the situation." Ethan's voice remained controlled, but the edge sharpened. "Then start with this. What's the actual issue?" Kimberly opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Jenna stepped in. "There is no issue." She made one up. At that moment, the curtain rustled from the other side. A passenger had pushed it slightly aside, a tall, well-dressed man from first class. "Is everything all right back here?" he asked, eyes shifting between the three of them. Kimberly stiffened. "Sir, please return to your seat." He ignored her. "This looks serious. That man paid for his seat. Why are you treating him like he didn't?" More whispers gathered behind him, others peeking toward the galley. Word was spreading fast. Kimberly's cheeks flushed bright red. "Everyone, please return to your seats." She snapped. Her voice was too loud, too sharp, too desperate. Passengers stepped back, but the atmosphere had already shifted. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was a spectacle waiting to explode. Ethan stepped out of the galley, brushing past Kimberly with a controlled calm that was somehow louder than shouting. He didn't glance at the gawking passengers. He walked straight back to his row where Maya and Noah were waiting. Maya's eyes were full of questions. "What happened?" Ethan sat down slowly. "Just a moment," he murmured. He pulled out his phone, not angrily, not dramatically, just with purpose. Kimberly froze when she saw it. Something inside her finally registered. She had messed with the wrong person, not because he looked wealthy, not because of his calm posture, but because of the quiet certainty in the way he typed, the kind of certainty that meant he wasn't bluffing. She turned toward the cockpit again, panic rising. From across the aisle, the same tall passenger shook his head. "Unbelievable," he said under his breath. "You can't treat people like that." Jenna walked slowly back toward the galley, but before she could disappear, she stopped beside Maya. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "This isn't right." Maya offered a grateful small nod. Her voice came out soft. "Thank you." Meanwhile, at the rear of the cabin, Kimberly's phone buzzed. Once. Twice. Then again. She stared at it, dread creeping across her face. She finally answered in a trembling whisper. "This is Kimberly." The captain's voice boomed even though he wasn't yelling. "Miss Shaw, I just received a message from one of our executive lines. They were contacted directly by a passenger on this flight. A very important passenger." Kimberly's knees nearly buckled. "What?" "I need a full report of what you've done so far." "Right now." Her throat tightened. She stammered. I only followed protocol. I thought something was wrong." "Based on what?" The captain cut in coldly. Silence. Passengers watched her melt down from across the cabin. They couldn't hear the words, but they could read the guilt written across her face. Kimberly hung up slowly, palms sweaty, breath shaky. She knew she had crossed a line she couldn't step back from. And Ethan, sitting calmly in his now very valid first-class seat, wasn't done. He watched her crumble from across the cabin. Not with satisfaction, not with vengeance, with resolve. Maya leaned toward him. "Ethan, what's happening now?" He slipped his phone into his jacket. "The beginning," he said simply. Passengers stared, waiting, watching. The hum of the engines filled the silence. The tension wrapped around first class like a current. Kimberly stood frozen, barely able to breathe. Because the truth was finally catching up to her, and her next action, the one she would try to take to save herself, would only make everything worse. Her biggest mistake wasn't what she'd done. It was what she tried to do next. Kimberly didn't sit. She didn't breathe. She just stood there, frozen in the aisle, staring at the phone like it had delivered a death sentence. Because it had. Her captain wanted answers. The executive line had been contacted. Someone important was now involved. And worst of all, everyone in first class had seen her mess up, but instead of stopping, instead of admitting fault, instead of calming down, she made the one move that destroyed everything. She doubled down. Kimberly marched back toward the Cole family with the kind of panic-driven confidence that always ends badly. Her hands trembled, but her voice tried to hold its shape. "Sir," she said sharply, "I need to speak to you again." The cabin fell silent instantly. Ethan looked up slowly. "Is there another problem?" Kimberly forced authority into her voice, though it cracked around the edges. "I've been instructed to verify your identity. There seems to be an inconsistency." A passenger across the aisle scoffed. Loud, on purpose. "Lady, you're digging your own grave." Kimberly whipped her head toward him. "Sir, please mind your business." He leaned back, arms crossed. "You made it my business when you turned this cabin into a circus." Kimberly's nostrils flared, but she kept her eyes on Ethan. "I need to see your ID," she repeated, words clipped. Ethan didn't move. "You've checked our boarding passes twice. There is no inconsistency." She lifted her chin as if daring him to argue. "ID, now," Maya stiffened. "Why are you doing this? Our tickets are valid." "You know they are." Kimberly ignored her. "Sir, please comply." Jenna, standing in the aisle behind her, looked horrified. "Kim, stop." But Kimberly wasn't listening. She wasn't thinking. She was drowning, and instead of reaching for a lifeline, she grabbed a stone. She took a step closer. "If you can't provide identification, we may need to remove you from this cabin." Gasps rippled across first class. Ethan's expression didn't shift, but a new weight settled into his voice. "Are you threatening to remove my family from the seats we paid for?" Kimberly blinked hard, panic bubbling under her skin. "I'm following orders." "No," Ethan said calmly. "You're trying to cover your mistake." Her lips parted, ready to deny it, but the passengers staring at her crushed that lie before it formed. Jenna stepped forward. "He's right," she said quietly. "This isn't protocol." "None of this is protocol." Kimberly's voice cracked. "Jenna, don't." "Someone has to," Jenna replied. Kimberly's breath hitched. She wasn't in control anymore. She knew it. Everyone knew it. She tried one more desperate push. "This family's reservation looks unusual," she insisted, voice rising. "Their name didn't match the system at first. I had to double-check. It's suspicious." Ethan's brows lifted. "Unusual how?" Kimberly said nothing. She didn't have an answer, because she had no real reason. No system error. No discrepancy. Just a gut feeling rooted in bias, and now exposed under the brightest spotlight possible. The tall passenger from earlier stood up again. "You're lying." Kimberly's head snapped toward him. "Sir, sit down." He didn't. "I saw the way you talked to them. You never talk to first-class passengers like that unless you've already judged them." Murmurs of agreement spread. One woman muttered, "This is unbelievable." Another said, "She's targeting them." Kimberly's face flushed deep red. She frantically turned to Ethan. "Sir, please come with me or I will have security meet you at the gate." The cabin erupted. "You can't do that." "They didn't do anything." "You're abusing your power. This is discrimination." Jenna finally snapped. "Kimberly, enough." The shout cut through the cabin like a blade. Kimberly flinched as if struck. Jenna stepped fully between her and the Cole family, shielding them without touching them, just using her presence. "This has gone too far," Jenna said. "You're violating policy. You're making accusations without evidence. And you're humiliating a family in front of the entire cabin." Kimberly's voice trembled. "I'm trying to protect the airline." "No," Jenna said firmly. "You're trying to protect yourself." Kimberly opened her mouth, but before she could defend herself, the cockpit door cracked open. The first officer stepped out, not the captain. The first officer. The captain never leaves before takeoff unless it's serious. He scanned the cabin, eyes landing on the tense crowd, then on Kimberly, then finally on Ethan. "Sir," he said to Ethan, straightening respectfully, "may I speak with you privately?" Kimberly's eyes widened. "See?" she hissed. "They're calling him out." The first officer cut her off. "No, Miss Shaw, not him." Then he turned. "You." Kimberly froze. Passengers leaned forward. The first officer continued, tone sharp. "I need to speak with you, Miss Shaw. Now." Her face went white. Jenna stared at her, stunned but relieved. The officer led Kimberly toward the galley. She followed, shoulders trembling, steps unsteady. The moment they left, the cabin exhaled like it had been holding its breath for minutes. Maya reached for Ethan's hand. "What now?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked down the aisle where Kimberly had disappeared, then at Jenna, who now stood close by. Jenna lowered her voice. "The captain received a message from the airline's executive tier. Whoever you contacted." "They're taking this seriously," Maya whispered. "Is he in trouble?" Jenna shook her head. "No, she is." From inside the galley, raised voices echoed. Kimberly's frantic, the officers sharp and controlled. Passengers exchanged looks, some sympathetic, some angry, some still stunned by what they'd witnessed, but one truth was clear. This wasn't ending quietly. After a tense minute, the galley curtain snapped open. Kimberly emerged, eyes glossy, breathing uneven, holding her hands tightly together as if to stop them from shaking. But she didn't walk back toward the Cole family. She walked past them, straight down the aisle, toward the rear of the plane. Passengers turned to watch her go, confusion spreading. A whisper floated across the cabin. "Did they pull her off duty?" Another whisper answered, "She's being removed from first class." But the truth was worse. Much worse. The first officer stepped out again and approached Ethan directly. "Mr. Cole," he said respectfully, "the captain would like to speak with you before we continue boarding." Kimberly stopped walking. Her head whipped around. Her eyes widened, because right then, in the middle of the aisle, she realized the truth. Ethan wasn't just a passenger. He was someone she should never have crossed. The captain didn't want to question Ethan, he wanted to apologize. And Kimberly was about to learn why. The moment the first officer said the captain wanted to speak with Ethan, the entire cabin shifted, not physically, emotionally. Passengers straightened. Whispers tightened. Even the air seemed to hold still. Because captains do not request private meetings with passengers unless something major has happened, but Kimberly Shaw froze, mid-aisle like she'd been hit by a stun gun. Head turned slowly, eyes wide, breath stuck in her throat. She had spent the last 20 minutes treating this man like he didn't belong, like he was an inconvenience, like he was beneath first-class standards. And now, the captain wanted him, not her, not Jenna, not security. Him. Maya gave Ethan a worried look. "Do you need to go?" Ethan squeezed her hand softly. "I'll be right back." He stood, adjusting his jacket with calm precision. Not smug, not arrogant, just collected. The kind of composure that comes naturally to people used to making big decisions. As he stepped into the aisle, Kimberly instinctively moved aside, her back pressed against a seat. Eyes avoiding his. She couldn't look at him. She knew why. The walk to the cockpit felt long. Passengers murmured encouragement as he passed. "Good luck." They owe you an apology." About time someone said something. Ethan offered quiet nods but stayed focused. He followed the first officer through the curtain, past the galley where Kimberly had been scolded minutes earlier. Finally, the cockpit door opened, and there stood the captain. Captain Rhodes, veteran pilot, crisp uniform, a face carved by thousands of flights and even more responsibilities, stepped out with a posture that wasn't authoritative. It was apologetic. He extended his hand immediately. "Mr. Cole, I am deeply sorry for what happened." Ethan shook his hand. "Thank you, Captain." Rhodes sighed, rubbing his forehead. "We received a direct call from our executive oversight line. A complaint flagged with your name. A serious one." Ethan nodded. "It was necessary." "Yes," Rhodes agreed. "I've reviewed the situation. And to be clear, there was no system issue. No discrepancy, no flag. What happened to your family was inappropriate and unacceptable." The captain's voice hardened. "Miss Shaw has violated multiple procedures." Ethan waited silently. Rhodes continued, tone heavy. "We're removing her from service on this flight. She will be met by corporate after landing." Ethan didn't react with satisfaction or anger, just calm acceptance. "I appreciate your response." "You don't deserve this," Rhodes added. "Your family doesn't deserve it. And on behalf of the entire crew, I apologize." Ethan gave a slight nod. "My concern is my wife and son. They were humiliated in front of the cabin." Rhodes exhaled. "And that humiliation ends now." He gestured toward the door. "Come, I want you back in your seat comfortably. I'll handle the rest." Ethan returned a few moments later, the curtain drawing back as he re-entered first class. Everyone looked at him, not because he wanted attention, because the tension of the flight revolved around him now. Maya's shoulders eased the moment she saw him. "What did he say?" Ethan sat down. "They're taking it very seriously." Noah perked up. "Are we still flying?" Ethan smiled softly. "Of course, buddy." Just then, Jenna approached with a new energy, relieved, respectful, protective. "Mr. Cole, Mrs. Cole, I wanted to check on you." Her voice shook a little. "Again, I'm sorry for what happened." Maya gave her a grateful look. "Thank you for stepping in." Jenna nodded, then leaned slightly closer. "Kimberly is being taken off this flight." Gasps popped up around the cabin. Passengers exchanged wide-eyed looks. From several rows behind, a woman whispered, "Good, she crossed the line." Another added, "She was out of control," and someone else muttered, "That family handled this better than I would have." Ethan stayed silent. He didn't need their validation. He never did. At the rear of the cabin, Kimberly stood near the galley, visibly trembling, her hands pressed against her stomach. Her eyes were red, but she refused to let tears fall where passengers could see. She knew this was coming, but the reality hit harder than she expected. A ground agent stepped onto the plane, summoned before takeoff. Passengers watched as he walked toward her. He spoke quietly. "Miss Shaw? I need you to gather your things." Her breath hitched. "You're pulling me off the flight?" "I'm sorry," he said gently. "Captain's orders." Her throat closed. "But I didn't mean... I was just..." "Ma'am," the agent said firmly, "you need to come with me." Passengers stared, some sympathetic, some judgmental, but no one argued. Kimberly turned, eyes scanning the cabin until they landed on Ethan. He met her gaze, calm, steady, unreadable. Her voice cracked. I didn't know who you were." Ethan didn't raise his voice, didn't gloat, didn't smirk. He simply replied with one sentence. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat my family with basic respect." The words struck like a blow. Kimberly's knees weakened. She turned away as tears slipped out, finally unable to hold them back. The agent guided her off the plane. Silence washed through first class. Heavy, real, unavoidable. The door shut behind Kimberly. The plane hummed as systems prepared for departure. Jenna returned to her duties, moving gently, checking on passengers with a renewed sense of purpose. When she reached the Cole family, she placed 2 fresh drinks on their tray tables. Juice for Noah, water for Ethan and Maya. "These are on us," she said softly. Maya smiled. "Thank you." But then Jenna lowered her voice even more. "If there's anything else you need, anything at all, please let me know." Her eyes flicked toward the front of the cabin. "The captain asked me to take special care of your row for the rest of the flight." Maya nodded gratefully. As Jenna left, the tall passenger across the aisle leaned toward Ethan. "You handled that with class," he said. "Most people would have yelled." Ethan responded simply, "Anger doesn't fix ignorance." The man smiled. "Well said." Meanwhile, in the jet bridge, Kimberly stood with the ground agent and a uniformed airline supervisor, her face streaked from crying, eyes swollen, breathing ragged. The supervisor spoke with clipped professionalism. "Miss Shaw, you'll be taken to the operations office. You are temporarily suspended until further review." Kimberly shook her head, tears falling. Please, I didn't mean to. I thought I was helping." "Helping?" the supervisor said, eyebrows raised. "You targeted a family without cause. You created a safety concern. And you escalated the situation twice after being warned. I misread. I didn't know who he was." Kimberly pleaded. The supervisor didn't soften. "That's the problem." Kimberly broke. "Fully. But the consequences were already in motion, and inside the aircraft?" Ethan sat calmly with his wife and son as the captain made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We will be departing shortly. All concerns have been resolved." He didn't mention names. He didn't explain details. He didn't expose anyone, but everyone in first class knew exactly what he was referring to. Everyone. The flight was finally taking off, but the real fallout was waiting at 30,000 feet. The moment the cabin door sealed and the jet engines roared to life, people expected the tension to fade. It didn't. If anything, it sharpened, because everyone knew the truth. What happened on the ground was only part 1. At 30,000 feet, the consequences would finally land, and the first sign hit before the wheels even left the runway. As the aircraft began to taxi, Ethan felt a presence beside him. He looked up. It was the first officer. Again. But this time he wasn't there for a malfunction or update. He leaned closer and kept his voice low. "Mr. Cole, the captain asked if you'd prefer to have the entire row blocked off for privacy." Passengers nearby turned, eyes wide. That kind of treatment wasn't normal. Even in first class, Ethan shook his head. "That won't be necessary. Thank you," the officer nodded. "If you change your mind, let us know." He walked away, leaving murmurs behind him. A man, 2 seats over, whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Who is this guy?" Another replied, "Someone very important, apparently." Maya reached over, touching Ethan's hand gently. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he said. "I just want you and Noah to feel comfortable." Noah held his juice with both hands, sipping it like nothing happened. But even he kept glancing at the aisle, making sure the mean lady wasn't coming back. She wasn't, not ever again. The plane lifted off the ground, engines humming. City lights fell away beneath them. A new quiet set in. Not peaceful quiet, anticipatory quiet. Jenna moved down the aisle with a controlled calm, checking seat belts, offering reassuring smiles that reached the right people at the right time. When she reached the Cole family, she paused. "Captain asked me to give you these." She placed 3 small envelopes on their tray table. Inside were complimentary vouchers, upgrades, priority credits, the kind of things airlines hand out when they're trying to fix something big without admitting how big it actually is. Ethan nodded politely. "Thank you, Jenna." She hesitated. "Mr. Cole, can I say something?" "Of course," Jenna took a breath. "I'm really glad you stood up for your family, and I'm sorry my coworker put you through that." Maya gave her a warm look. "You didn't do anything wrong." "You tried to help," Jenna smiled faintly. "I just didn't want you to think we're all like that." Ethan looked at her, sincerity in his voice. "We know." She nodded, relieved, and moved down the aisle. "Passengers, speak up now that the plane was in the air and no authority figure was hovering nearby." Passengers finally let loose. The man across the aisle leaned in. "I want you to know, if they had tried to remove you, half this cabin would have protested," a woman chimed in. "More than half," someone behind them added. "She treated you like criminals." "That was out of line." A man in a business suit said, "She made the whole cabin uncomfortable." I almost hit the call button. Ethan listened quietly, grateful but composed. "Thank you. All of you," Maya offered a small smile. "It means a lot." The passengers nodded, satisfied simply being heard. But not everyone was satisfied with only that. An older woman holding a tablet turned around. "I recorded some of it," she whispered. "If you need evidence," Maya blinked. "You recorded her?" "She was out of line," the woman whispered. "I document everything when I fly. You never know," Ethan smiled faintly. "You're very prepared," she winked. "Experience comes with age." Passengers chuckled softly, but one voice stood out among the whispers. The tall man from earlier leaned forward. "If the airline gives you a hard time, I'll testify." Ethan shook his hand. "I appreciate that." "You earned it," the man replied. While the passengers settled into flight, Kimberly sat in the operations office on the ground, still in uniform, hands shaking in front of her as she waited for the corporate investigator. Her mind replayed the cabin events like a nightmare on loop. Every word, every accusation, every stare. She wiped her eyes again, voice cracking. "I didn't do anything wrong. I thought they were in the wrong seats." But even she didn't believe it anymore. Her supervisor looked at her flatly. "Miss Shaw, I already reviewed the footage." "Footage?" She hadn't even considered the cameras. The supervisor continued. "Your tone was unacceptable. Your comments were inappropriate. And you ignored protocol multiple times." Kimberly's breath broke. "I was stressed. I was overwhelmed. I thought I was helping." He shook his head. "You escalated a harmless situation into a serious complaint. And worst of all, you targeted passengers without reason." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't know who he was." "That," the supervisor said coldly, "is exactly why this is so bad." Kimberly pressed her palms to her forehead. Please don't fire me. I need this job," he sighed. "We'll finish the review after the flight. But the airline takes discrimination extremely seriously." Tears streamed down her face as the truth settled like a weight on her chest. Her career, her record, everything, all put at risk because she acted on a feeling, a wrong one, and the fallout wasn't finished yet. Jenna returned again, setting down meals with extra care. Other passengers were already eating, but Ethan, Maya, and Noah's plates came out first. "Captain wanted to make sure you were served early," Jenna said softly. Ethan nodded. "Thank him for me," Noah grinned. "Do I get dessert?" Jenna laughed gently. "Yes, you do. The biggest one." Noah's eyes lit up. As she walked away, a man behind them whispered to his wife. "They're treating him like royalty." His wife whispered back, "They're terrified. That's what happens when you don't know whose family you messed with." Maya leaned close. "This feels surreal." "I know," Ethan said. "Let's just enjoy the flight." But the flight wasn't done with them, because 20 minutes later, the first officer returned. Again. He knelt slightly beside Ethan's seat, a respectful posture rarely seen. "Mr. Cole, the captain wanted to offer you something privately." Ethan tilted his head. "What is it?" "A direct conference line with corporate," the officer revealed. "In case you want to report anything else while in flight." The cabin drew another collective gasp. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. "They're giving you a live line?" Ethan nodded slowly. The officer added, "Sir, it's rare, extremely rare, only extended during executive-level escalations." Passengers stared at Ethan with new understanding. Someone whispered, "He must be connected to corporate." Someone else said, "No, he must outrank them." And a third voice murmured, "That attendant didn't just mess up, She messed with someone who has pull. The officer waited for Ethan's response. Ethan simply said, "Tell the captain I appreciate the offer. I'll use it if necessary." The officer nodded deeply and left. Maya looked at Ethan, eyes full of meaning. "Ethan, who exactly did you contact?" He answered calmly, "Someone who doesn't tolerate disrespect." Before Maya could press further, Noah said, "Mommy, can I have more juice?" The tension broke into soft laughter. But the truth remained. This wasn't ending with a few apologies and a removed crew member. The airline had escalated the situation all the way up the ladder, and the higher it went, the harder the consequences would fall. At cruising altitude, Ethan was calm. But the captain, he was preparing for the second apology, the one everyone would hear. The seatbelt sign turned off. That's when it happened. A tone echoed through the cabin. Sharp, sudden, unmistakable. The intercom clicked. Every passenger went quiet at once. Because captains don't usually speak mid-flight unless it's turbulence, weather, or emergencies. But this wasn't any of those. Ethan knew it. Kimberly, sitting in a cold office on the ground, would soon know it too. And every passenger buckled in at 30,000 feet was about to witness something rare. The captain cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen." His voice was steady, but the underlying weight made everyone sit straighter. "Before we continue this flight, I need to address a situation that occurred during pre-departure." A wave of whispers spread through first class. Oh my God. He's doing it publicly. He's really going to talk about it? This never happens. Ethan remained silent, calm, focused, but Maya felt her pulse climb. She knew what this announcement meant. This had gone beyond the cabin, past the crew, even past the airport. This had reached the top. The captain continued. There was a matter involving a misunderstanding between one of our crew members and a passenger seated in this cabin. He paused, not because he needed to, because he wanted the words to settle. A few passengers leaned forward, waiting. This misunderstanding, he said evenly, resulted in one of our passengers being questioned unfairly. The whispers grew stronger. I knew it. She targeted them. They're admitting it. The captain's next words hit harder. This airline does not tolerate inappropriate treatment of any passenger, regardless of status, appearance, or background. Every person who saw Kimberly's behavior nodded. This was exactly what needed to be said. "This is a formal apology," the captain said. People turned toward Ethan instantly, to Mr. Cole and his family. The cabin reacted like someone had dropped a spark into gasoline. Gasps, murmurs, a few stunned laughs. Someone muttered, "He got a captain apology." "That's insane," the captain continued. "We have removed the crew member responsible from this flight. A full internal review is underway." Maya covered her mouth. Noah looked around, confused but curious. "Mommy, is the airplane man talking about us?" She nodded gently. "Yes, sweetie. Did we win?" He whispered. She smiled softly. "Yes, baby. We did." Meanwhile, the captain wasn't done. "I want to assure all passengers that you are safe, valued, and respected. I take full responsibility for ensuring this flight meets our highest standards from this point forward." People started clapping. At first, it was a few, then more, then the entire cabin. A full applause mid-flight, for Ethan, for his family, for the fact that someone finally stood up and said out loud what everyone had been thinking. Ethan didn't clap. He didn't smile. He stayed composed, dignified, grounded. Maya squeezed his hand. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he said, but there was something deeper behind his calmness. A quiet strength Maya had always seen but rarely witnessed this close. Once the announcement ended and the intercom clicked off, first class erupted with a different energy, more confident, more united, more vocal. That was incredible. He deserved that apology. They finally said it out loud. A woman with a laptop leaned across the aisle. "I've flown hundreds of times. I've never heard a captain apologize by name. A businessman added, "They don't do that unless the passenger is influential." The older woman who took video earlier held out her tablet slightly. "If you ever need this footage, I can airdrop it." Maya blinked. "You recorded the announcement too." "I record everything," she said proudly. But the tall man from earlier leaned forward. "Let me ask you something," he said to Ethan. "Are you someone in corporate?" Ethan shook his head gently. "No." "Are you a shareholder?" "No." "Are you a board member?" "No." "Then, what did you text that scared them so much?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "I contacted someone who doesn't tolerate discrimination," he said simply. The man sat back, impressed. "That's all they needed, huh?" It was enough. Jenna approached again, but this time she didn't look nervous at all. She actually looked relieved. "Mr. and Mrs. Cole," she said softly. "I just wanted to say, thank you." Maya blinked. "For what?" "For not yelling. For not escalating. For staying calm even when you were being treated unfairly." Ethan offered a polite nod. "Thank you for speaking up." Jenna smiled sadly. "I wish more crew members would. But not everyone is brave enough to stand up to coworkers, even when they're wrong." "You did the right thing," Ethan said. Her lips trembled a little. "I hope corporate thinks so." Maya's brow lifted. "Why wouldn't they?" Jenna glanced around, then leaned closer. "Because I spoke against another crew member. Some airlines don't like that." Ethan understood instantly. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "I'll make sure they know exactly who helped us." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you, truly." She stepped away to continue service, but her shoulders were lighter, her steps steadier. Just when the cabin started to settle, when snacks began circulating, when passengers finally relaxed, Ethan's phone buzzed once, twice, then again. He glanced at the screen. Maya noticed. "Who's that?" Ethan's voice dropped. "Corporate." Maya's eyes widened. "They're calling you? Mid-flight?" He nodded, but when he answered, something unexpected happened. A voice, crisp, formal, clearly senior, spoke. "Mr. Cole, this is Michelle Turner, head of customer relations for the airline. I'm contacting you regarding the incident that occurred before departure." Ethan sat straighter. Passengers already staring leaned in more. Maya held her breath. Michelle continued. "I'm reaching out to schedule a private conversation as soon as you land. The CEO would also like to speak with you directly." The CEO, the entire cabin stiffened. Someone whispered, "This is on another level." Another said, "He got the captain. Now corporate. Now the CEO?" Ethan responded with calm certainty. "I'm available." Michelle added, "Your family should expect full compensation, but we'd like to discuss more appropriate restitution." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. "It means," Michelle answered, "this will never happen to anyone else again, and we want your help fixing it." The call ended. Ethan set his phone down gently. Maya asked, "What did she say?" Ethan replied, "They want me involved." Passengers stared with newfound awe, because this wasn't just an incident anymore. This was a turning point. For the airline, for Kimberly, for the crew, and for Ethan. But the moment they landed, Ethan learned something that changed everything. Not about the airline, but about Kimberly herself. The moment the plane touched down, Ethan felt something shift. Not turbulence, not nerves, a sense, a weight, like the story wasn't finished yet, because something darker was waiting on the ground. And he was right. The seatbelt sign dinged off. Passengers stood. Bags came down. But first class didn't move the same way. Instead of rushing to get off, everyone hesitated, watching Ethan, waiting to see what would happen next. Maya adjusted Noah's jacket. "Are you ready?" "Yep," he chirped, gripping his toy jet. But Ethan was already turning his phone back on. It buzzed immediately. Once, twice, then non-stop. Messages, emails, missed calls, unknown numbers. Then his screen lit up again. "Incoming call. Michelle Turner, head of customer relations, he answered. This is Ethan. Her voice came through crisp and direct. Mr. Cole, thank you. We have the full incident report now. Ethan waited. Maya leaned closer. Michelle exhaled, not casually, but the deep sigh of someone who had spent the last 2 hours dealing with a mess. There is new information you need to know before leaving the aircraft. Passengers within earshot tried not to stare. And failed, Michelle continued. The crew member who confronted you, Kimberly Shaw, has a history. Ethan's brow lowered. A history of what? Michelle hesitated. Bias-related complaints. Maya's eyes widened. Michelle went on. We found 3 previous incidents filed by passengers on other flights. None escalated this far, but the pattern is clear. Ethan's jaw tightened. Passion rose in the cabin as Michelle's words filtered through bits and pieces to people nearby. What? This wasn't the first time? She's done this before? They kept her on duty? Michelle continued. She had been warned twice, but this situation has sparked a full senior-level review. What kind of review? Ethan asked. A potential termination. Several passengers gasped around him. Even those pretending not to listen were very obviously listening now. Maya covered her mouth. Oh my God! Michelle wasn't done. There's something else. Something more serious. Ethan leaned forward. Go on. We pulled camera footage. His heartbeat ticked once, hard. Her behavior was deliberate, Michelle said. She looked at your tickets before saying a word to you. They were clearly valid. She checked the system twice. There was no discrepancy. Maya whispered. She knew. Michelle said what both of them already understood. She escalated anyway. The plane went silent around Ethan. Even people who weren't listening suddenly were. Michelle cleared her throat. I also need to inform you, Kimberly tried to alter the report she submitted. Ethan froze. She what? Michelle confirmed it. She changed the timestamp on when she claimed she checked your reservation. The system logs exposed the lie, Maya whispered, horrified. She tried to cover her tracks. Michelle's voice hardened. The attempt to falsify information made it worse. Much worse. Passengers around them stared wide-eyed. Ethan kept his voice steady. I understand. No, Michelle said firmly, you don't. He waited. The CEO wants a sit-down with you today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Maya blinked. The CEO, in person? Michelle replied. He's already in the building. He's waiting. Ethan exchanged a look with his wife. A look that held shock, anger, and realization. This incident had traveled farther up the chain than anyone expected. Michelle finished with, Our team will escort you the moment you step off the aircraft. There's one more thing you should know, and this part is personal. Ethan's jaw tightened. What is it? Michelle said it slowly. Kimberly told supervisors. She targeted you because you didn't look like first class. Passengers. Her exact words, Maya, felt her stomach drop. Passengers who overheard looked. Enraged. Oh, hell no. That's disgusting. She said that? She's finished, Michelle added. The board takes this extremely seriously. And we would like you to be directly involved in the corrective training, if you're willing. Ethan took a breath. I am, Michelle answered. Thank you. We'll see you soon. The call ended. Ethan lowered his phone. The cabin stared at him, not out of curiosity, not because he was a spectacle, because he had just become the center of the airline's largest internal crisis of the year. As passengers filed out, 2 airline representatives stepped onto the plane. Suits, badges, authority. They walked straight to Ethan. Mr. Cole? Yes, Ethan replied. I'm Aaron Pierce, Customer Relations. This is Sandra Lee, Senior Operations. We're here to escort your family. Maya's eyes widened. Escort us? Aaron nodded. There's a dedicated conference room prepared. The CEO will meet you there, passengers whispered, starstruck. They're escorting him. This really turned into a corporate emergency. He's basically royalty now. The tall man across the aisle approached Ethan. Hey, Whatever happens in that meeting, I hope they treat you right. Ethan shook his hand. Thank you. The escort team guided them through the jet bridge. Other passengers lingered, pretending to check phones but actually watching the scene unfold. Noah held Maya's hand tightly. Mommy, are they mad at us? Maya knelt to his level. No, baby. They're helping us. Ethan nodded. You did nothing wrong. Waiting outside the gate was someone unexpected. Jenna. Still in uniform. Still emotional. Still shaken. She stepped forward carefully. Mr. Cole. Mrs. Cole. Her voice cracked. I just wanted to say thank you. Again. You didn't deserve any of that. Ethan nodded. Thank you for standing up for us. Jenna swallowed hard. I hope this doesn't hurt my job. Sandra, the senior operations officer, stepped forward. Miss Ruiz, you did the right thing. You're not in trouble. Jenna let out a shaky breath of relief, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. She stepped back. Ethan gave her a respectful nod before turning to walk with the escort. But right before they exited the terminal area, a voice called out. Mr. Cole. Ethan turned. A woman approached, holding a folder. Michelle Turner, head of customer relations. She extended her hand. I'm Michelle, and I'm the one who called you. Ethan shook her hand firmly. Thank you for taking this seriously. She replied with a tone that wasn't corporate. It was personal. You haven't heard everything yet. Maya tensed. There's more. Michelle nodded. Yes, and you deserve to see it. Ethan's expression sharpened. See what? Michelle opened the folder slowly. Inside were printed screenshots, transcripts, camera images, her summary report, and at the top, in bold, internal complaint review, crew member, Kimberly Shaw Michelle placed her hand on the folder. Before we meet the CEO, you should know exactly how far this went. What was inside that folder would change how Ethan saw the entire incident and reveal a secret about Kimberly that shocked even corporate. Michelle didn't open the folder right away. She just held it for a moment, almost like she needed Ethan to brace himself. That alone told him this wasn't just paperwork. This was something deeper. Maya squeezed his arm gently. Whatever's in there. We'll face it, Ethan nodded. Go ahead. Michelle inhaled slowly and lifted the first page. What Ethan saw wasn't what he expected. Not a standard write-up. Not a quick summary. Not a single paragraph about poor judgment. It was a full report. Pages of it. Michelle began speaking, but the tone of her voice had changed. It wasn't rehearsed or corporate. It was serious. A passenger reported Kimberly 3 months ago for similar behavior on a San Diego flight. Ethan's expression didn't change, but his grip on the folder tightened. Michelle continued, flipping the page. Another complaint from a Houston route. Same issue. She questioned a couple's right to sit in an upgraded cabin. Ignored procedure. Claimed their tickets didn't look premium enough. Maya whispered. She's done this before. Michelle nodded. Yes, twice documented. Maybe more that weren't filed. But the next page held something even worse. Michelle tapped the section with her finger. This one's from last year. An elderly veteran traveling on miles, Kimberly forced him to recheck into economy because she didn't believe he could afford his seat. He missed his connecting flight because of her, Maya gasped. What? Corporate reinstated him and reprimanded her, Michelle said. But she wasn't suspended. The union pushed back. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the pattern. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time lapse of judgment. This was behavior. Michelle flipped to another page. This part is new, written by our internal investigator since you took off. She held up a printed transcript. It's an audio recording from the galley. Right before she confronted you the second time, the words were there. Clear, unfiltered, Kimberly's voice. They don't look like they belong in first class. Ethan felt the words hit him like a stone, not because he didn't expect them, but because seeing them in print, logged, official, undeniable, made it real. Michelle continued reading quietly. I don't buy it. Their tickets must be wrong. They probably upgraded with points or something. Jenna's voice appeared in the transcript too. Kim, stop making assumptions. But Kimberly didn't stop. She escalated. Michelle lowered the page, eyes heavy. She didn't know you were the person who filed the executive complaint. She had no idea you were connected to anyone. This wasn't about influence. It was about bias. Maya looked down, eyes fogging with emotion. She judged us before she even spoke to us. Michelle nodded with empathy. And she doubled down when she realized she was wrong. But the next page, the next part of the file, made everything heavier. Michelle hesitated. There's more. Ethan straightened. What is it? Michelle flipped to the final page and turned it around so Ethan and Maya could read it at the same time. A printed email, sent by Kimberly. Not to crew, not to operations, not to a supervisor. It was written to a friend, an internal employee at another airport station, hours before their flight. The subject line, another long day in first class. Maya read the first sentence aloud under her breath, voice cracking. Sick of first-class passengers acting like they own the world. They always look at me like I'm beneath them. I swear, the next one who gives me attitude, I'll show them they're not special. Ethan's jaw set. Michelle's voice softened. She wasn't supposed to send that using company email. IT traced it when they investigated her account. Maya blinked hard. So she walked onto this flight, already angry, and looking for a fight, Michelle said. Her behavior toward you wasn't triggered. It was preloaded. Passengers nearby, still lingering outside the gate, audibly gasped. One woman whispered, "She came in with a grudge." Michelle continued, "There's one more line." She turned the page. The last sentence shook Maya to her core. "I'm done being pushed around. Next rude first-class traveler who steps out of line is getting checked." Silence followed, a heavy one. Ethan felt it, the weight of being chosen. Not because of anything he did, but because he happened to be there at the wrong moment. Maya whispered, "So she wasn't enforcing rules. She was proving a point." Michelle nodded. "A very dangerous point." Ethan ran a hand across his mouth. "Why wasn't she suspended after the earlier complaints?" Michelle exhaled, looking almost ashamed. "We failed. We missed the pattern. And you're right to question it." She closed the folder. "And that's why the CEO wants to meet with you." Aaron and Sandra, the two representatives, guided the Cole family through the terminal. Passengers from the flight continued whispering as they passed. "That's him. That's the family. They're heading to corporate." Noah clutched Ethan's hand but hummed softly, distracted by a candy vending machine. Maya stroked his hair. Ethan walked with purpose. Michelle walked beside him. "Ethan," she said quietly, "the CEO isn't just apologizing. He wants your perspective on how to fix this culture issue." "I'll give it," Ethan replied. Maya touched his arm. "Do you really want to take that on?" "Yes," Ethan said without hesitation. "Because if she's done this to others, it won't stop unless someone pushes back." Michelle nodded with gratitude. "You're doing more than most people would." Ethan walked through the doorway into the executive wing. At the end of the hall, Michelle said, gesturing, "You'll meet Daniel Hartman, our CEO." Noah tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Daddy, is he like the boss of the airplane?" Ethan smiled softly. "He's the boss of everyone who works for the airplane." Noah nodded, satisfied. Just before they reached the door labeled Executive Suite, an assistant rushed over, whispering frantically into Michelle's ear. Michelle's expression shifted from calm to startled, to something close to disbelief. Maya stepped closer. "What happened?" Michelle looked shaken. "The CEO found out something else about Kimberly, and he wants to show you himself." Ethan frowned. "What did he find?" Michelle didn't answer. She only said, "He said you need to see it to understand the full picture." When the CEO opened the final file, Ethan finally learned the truth about Kimberly and why she targeted his family that day, and it was far worse than bias. The door to the executive suite opened before anyone could knock. Daniel Hartman, CEO of the airline, stepped out, Tall, direct, controlled. His presence wasn't loud. It was felt. He didn't offer a casual handshake. Instead, he said in a low, steady voice, "Mr. Cole. Mrs. Cole. Thank you for coming. There's something you need to see. No small talk. No corporate fluff." He went straight to the point. Ethan exchanged a quick glance with Maya. She nodded. They followed Daniel into the conference room. Inside, a long table stretched across the room. On it sat another folder, thicker than the one Michelle had shown earlier. Daniel closed the door, ensuring full privacy. What he said next made the air turn cold. "We ran a deeper search on Kimberly Shaw after reviewing the footage," he began. "What we found explains everything." He opened the folder. Maya placed a hand over her mouth as the first page came into view. A disciplinary document. Fireable offenses. Not 1, not 2, but 7. Daniel walked them through each one. Not rushed, not exaggerated, just truth laid bare. She demanded extra verification of their boarding passes. The family filed a complaint. The crew lead noted that Kimberly felt they were out of place. Michelle whispered, "Sound familiar?" She refused to let him pre-board, mocking his priority status despite his disability listing. Ethan's jaw tightened. She claimed they didn't understand enough English to fly in an exit row. Even though both spoke fluent English, Maya shook her head. "That's awful." She questioned his ID more than once, claiming he looked suspicious. Daniel added quietly, "She delayed the flight by 8 minutes because of it. Kimberly told the child she must be in the wrong cabin and made her move to economy until another attendant corrected it." "No." Maya whispered in disbelief. Kimberly refused to help her move into her seat, saying she was busy. She also commented that first class was not a hospital ward. Maya's voice shook. How did she keep her job? Daniel answered honestly. "Our system failed." "We failed." He flipped to the final page. This time, Ethan felt the weight shift. This wasn't just behavior. This was deeper. Daniel explained, "Cabin crew undergo mental health evaluations every year. Kimberly passed them. Barely. But 2 years ago, a report flagged her for unresolved anger issues and heightened reactivity under stress." Ethan frowned. "She wasn't recommended for removal?" "She was recommended for counseling," Daniel said, "but she didn't attend her required sessions. Someone in HR marked them as completed when they weren't." Maya gasped. "So she was flying, when she shouldn't have been." Daniel nodded. "Yes." A hush filled the room. This wasn't just a case of a rude attendant or bias, or a personal grudge. This was a systematic failure. The airline let an unstable, biased employee stay in first-class service for years. And Ethan's family had walked straight into the crossfire of a pattern ignored too long. Daniel turned the page. A printed email. Subject: "I can't stand entitled passengers anymore." Maya's eyes moved across the text. Kimberly wrote, "I'm tired of smiling at people who treat me like dirt. Someone needs to remind these elite flyers that they're no better than the rest of us. The next one who talks down to me, I'll show them." Ethan felt something heavy settle in his chest. Daniel closed the file gently. "So, when she saw you, when she assumed you didn't belong, she decided you were the next one she would teach a lesson." Maya let out a slow, painful breath. "She chose us before even speaking to us." Daniel nodded. "She assumed you'd fit her pattern. She projected her anger on your family, before a single word was exchanged." Ethan stayed silent for a moment. When he finally spoke, it was steady. "This wasn't personal. It was habitual," Daniel agreed. "Yes, and that makes it worse, because it means others suffered before you." He paused. "And none of them got the justice you're getting right." "Now," Michelle stepped forward with another document, "Mr. Cole. The board has drafted an official offer. Ethan didn't reach for it yet." "What kind of offer?" Daniel answered for her. "An apology. Public if you want it." "And compensation?" Ethan asked. Daniel nodded. Full reimbursement for the flight. Lifetime elite status. Unlimited upgrades for immediate family. Maya blinked. That's a lot. Daniel wasn't finished. And we want you to help us rebuild our training program. Ethan frowned slightly. Me? Why? Daniel said something no CEO had ever said to him before. Because we need someone who understands the impact of bias but responds with restraint. You handled this with dignity. You didn't yell. You didn't insult anyone. You held your ground without losing your cool. Ethan remained composed, but Maya looked proud. Daniel continued. People like Kimberly slip through because the system allows it. You saw the flaws. You pushed back the right way. And we want that perspective. Ethan finally asked the question that had been sitting on his tongue for hours. What's happening to Kimberly now? Daniel took a slow breath. She has been placed on immediate suspension. Her access badge is revoked. HR is conducting a termination review, Michelle added, and depending on the investigation, she could lose her FAA certification as well. Maya whispered. She could lose her entire career. Daniel nodded solemnly. She put families at risk. She ignored procedure. She discriminated. And she tried to falsify a report to cover it. He paused. This industry can't afford people like that. Daniel slid one more sheet across the table. A handwritten note. Not from corporate. Not from the captain. Not from HR. From Jenna Ruiz, the attendant who defended them. It read, "Thank you for being kind, even when someone wasn't kind to you. I hope the airline becomes better because of this family." Maya smiled softly. Eyes misting, Ethan folded the note and placed it carefully into his jacket pocket. When he stood, Daniel extended his hand again, "Thank you. You've helped us see something we ignored for too long." Ethan shook his hand firmly. "Do better. For the next family," Daniel nodded. "We will." As they left the room, Maya exhaled shakily. "It's almost over." But Ethan paused. "Not yet." Maya looked at him. "What do you mean?" Ethan answered quietly. "Kimberly wants closure too, and she deserves to hear something from me, directly." Ethan didn't want revenge. He wanted accountability, and facing Kimberly one last time was the only way to close this chapter. Ethan didn't rush. He didn't storm out of the executive suite. He didn't demand to see anyone. He simply said, "Take me to her." Michelle blinked. "Are you sure?" Maya touched his arm. "Ethan, you don't have to do this." He looked at her gently. "I know." Then added quietly, "But I need to." This wasn't about anger or pride or proving he was right. It was about finishing what the others before him never got the chance to finish. Accountability. Sandra, the senior operations officer, stepped forward. "We can arrange it. She's still in the operations office." Ethan nodded. "Take me." They moved through quiet hallways behind the terminal, employee corridors not meant for passengers. Noah rode in Maya's arms, half asleep now, unaware of the weight of the moment. They passed break rooms, training rooms, bulletin boards filled with safety reminders. Every employee they walked by did a double take. Some recognized the situation. Some whispered. Some simply stepped aside. But eventually they reached a door. Marked Employee Operations, Authorized Staff Only. Sandra pushed it open. Inside, a security officer sat at a desk. Another typed quietly. Phones rang, and in the corner, Kimberly sat alone. Still in uniform, badge taken, hands clasped tightly, eyes swollen from crying. She didn't look like the woman who confronted Ethan on the plane. She didn't look like the woman who barked orders or questioned his family's right to exist in first class. She looked small, exhausted, defeated. When she realized Ethan was standing in the doorway, her entire body stiffened. She stood abruptly, wiping her eyes. I didn't expect." Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. "I didn't expect you to come." Ethan stepped forward, calm as always. Maya stood behind him with Noah, present but not interfering. Kimberly tried to speak. "Mr. Cole, I know there's nothing I can say to fix this, but please, just let me explain. I was under stress. I misread the situation. Ethan raised a hand gently. "No excuses." Kimberly froze. Her lip trembled. He continued, tone steady. "What you did was wrong. Not just to us, to others before us." Kimberly broke. I know, I'm sorry." She covered her face, tears pushing through. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I've been overwhelmed. My life is a mess. I've been angry for months, and I took it out on the wrong people." Ethan stayed quiet. Not cold, just patient. Kimberly lowered her hands. Her voice came out thin. "I thought you were just another entitled flyer. I thought you were going to talk down to me before you even said a word. I got defensive before anything even happened." She took a breath. "And then, when I realized I'd made a mistake, I panicked. I doubled down instead of admitting I was wrong." Ethan finally spoke. "You didn't just double down. You escalated. You lied. You tried to intimidate my family. You tried to use your position to push us out of seats we paid for." Kimberly nodded quickly, ashamed. I know. I'm sorry." Ethan stepped closer. Not threatening, but unmistakably honest. "Kimberly, this wasn't a moment of stress. This was a pattern." Her eyes widened, filling again. "They showed you the file?" "Yes." She sank back into the chair, defeated. "Then you know everything." Ethan nodded. "I do." Silence settled. Not heavy, not tense, just real. Kimberly whispered, "Am I fired?" Ethan looked at her, not with hatred, but with clarity. "That's not my decision." She looked down. "I'm scared." "For your job?" Ethan asked. She shook her head. "For myself." Then she added softly, "I didn't realize how much anger I've been carrying." Ethan held her gaze. "Then deal with it. Don't run from it. Don't dump it on strangers. Don't let it spill into the job or your life." Kimberly nodded. Then Ethan said the words she wasn't expecting. "I don't want your life ruined." Her head jerked up. "What?" Ethan repeated calmly. "I don't want your life ruined. I want you held accountable. I want you to learn from this. But I'm not here to destroy you." Kimberly's breath stuttered. You aren't angry?" "I'm disappointed," Ethan replied honestly. "But anger fades. Patterns don't. You have to break them." Kimberly wiped her eyes. "Thank you. I don't deserve that." He didn't confirm or deny. "That's for you to decide," he said, "starting today." She nodded slowly, holding his words like something fragile. Ethan turned to leave, but Kimberly called out softly, "Mr. Cole?" He paused. "Why did you come here?" she asked. His answer was simple: to end it the right way. Maya walked beside him, relieved but quiet. "That was kind of you," she said softly. Ethan shrugged. "Kindness isn't weakness." "No," she said, touching his hand. "It's strength." Noah yawned loudly. "Can we go home now?" Maya laughed gently. "Yes, baby, we're going home." Michelle walked with them back through the private hall. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I've worked here 20 years. I've never seen a passenger handle something like this the way you did." Ethan nodded. "Thank you for fixing it." "We will," she promised, "starting today." As they exited into the public area, Daniel met them one last time. "Mr. Cole," he said, extending a hand, "before you go, we're issuing a formal internal memo to all flight staff tonight. This will become a case study in training. What happened will not be ignored." Ethan shook his hand. "Good." Daniel added, "And I want to thank you personally. You didn't just stand up for your family. You helped us see a failing we've ignored for too long." Maya smiled proudly. Noah tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" Ethan smiled for the first time all day. "Yes, let's go." Daniel chuckled softly. "You've earned it." Passengers from the flight spotted them and waved. Staff nodded respectfully. Jenna ran up briefly to hug Maya and thank Ethan one last time. And as the Cole family headed toward the exit, holding hands, tired but together, there was no anger left. Just closure, just accountability, just peace. Ethan didn't change the system by shouting. He changed it by standing his ground, and because of that, the next family who walks into first class will be treated with dignity, not suspicion. Because one man refused to stay silent,